Rise of the Lycan Princess. Chapter 20. Crimson twilight washed the broken rim of dark glass crater, tinting every fist of basalt, every snow-patched pine, every drawn blade. The sky looked wounded, a slow bleeding cut across the world. Nara inhaled the metallic tang of charged magic. It rasped in her throat like distant thunder. Freya stirred within, a steady counterpulse of gold light riding her heartbeat. Ronan dismounted beside her on the highest ridge spur, snow swirling around Nightwind's hooves. He surveyed the scarred basin below, jaw set. The eclipse touches the sun in less than an hour. Then we finish before its shadow swallows us, Nara answered, tightening the leather straps of her silver and obsidian cuirass. Even through gloves, she felt the hum of Unity's promise at her hip, eager, unflinching. She brushed a hand along the blade's pommel. Freya's voice resonated. We stand where night chose to pretend it was day. Let us remind it of dawn. Lines of warriors formed behind the ridge, banners snapping in sulfur-tinged wind. Iron-crest shields gleamed pewter beneath frost. Blue moon lancers paired with hollow fang archers, white-dipped arrowheads sparking whenever crimson ash brushed them. Riverbreak spear carriers braced river reeds stiffened by ice resin, while Raven Hollow scouts knelt at cliff edges, hawkeyes already tracking cult vanguards. Cole jogged up from the rear column, breath fogging. Advance parties from all packs report positions held. They're ready to follow your signal. Nara clasped his arm. Guard the wounded and keep the line elastic. If the shards flare, fallback routes must stay clear. He managed a grin despite the tension. I'll bend like willow but not break. Hooves sounded. Lucian cantered to the ridge crest. Elias at his side, both armor scuffed from earlier skirmishes. Lucian dismounted, slapped frost from his cloak. Cult scouts retreated into the crater 5 minutes ago. They know we're here, but they're counting on their wards. He gestured toward the basin floor, where a circle of obsidian monoliths pulsed dull red, 3 intact shards embedded at cardinal points around a floating mirror altar. Flame-haired and regal, the mirror woman stood upon an onyx platform, arms raised as she chanted in a harmony of languages. At her back, the cloaked cult leader extended both hands to the sky, feeding power upward in a column of warped moons. Ronan scanned the battlefield. Selene. Underground. Elias pointed to a rock face, lower on the slope where a narrow fissure yawned. She'll breach the first ward ring from below. Nara nodded. Talia and Kale hold our vanguard. When Selene disrupts the wards, Lucien, you and Elias take riverbreak spears and fast, open a path. Iona and Raven Hollow scouts slip through to fracture the shard pedestals. Once I reach the altar, no one interferes unless I fall. Understood? Ronan's jaw twitched. You will not fall. I plan on staying upright just to prove you right, she murmured, allowing a faint smile. She drew the silver-edged dagger Ronan had entrusted to her that morning. Its mirrorless steel drank the crimson light without reflection, a promise of severed darkness. She returned it to the sheath at her thigh. Maris hurried up, clutching a bundle of vials. Last potions, poppy root for pain, moon salt to clear mirror fog. She pressed the satchel into Nara's palm. I expect the whole lot back full and unused. Kale's rumbling laugh drifted from the slope. She scolds even at world's edge. Maris whirled, jabbing a finger. And you will drink this frostroot tea the moment the battle ends, or limp for a moon. Yes, healer, Kale called, grin widening. Nara's gaze returned to the crater. The mirror altar rotated slowly, shards of glass levitating around it like shattered planets. Each pulse sent ripples across the basalt floor. Corrupted wolves prowled between sulfur vents, eyes ember red. Hooded cultists knelt in concentric rings, chanting as one. Freya growled, Listen, mate bonds crack like ice in spring. A distant wail carried on the wind. Nara's chest tightened. She recognized the pained cry of a bond stretching thin. Somewhere far from the crater, 2 lovers felt their link fray. Selene's rune spark blinked twice from the fissure. Signal received. Nara raised Unity's promise skyward. Silver luminance flared, scattering ash. The alliances on the ridge lifted weapons, a soft rumble passing through ranks like a giant inhaling. "On my mark," she called, voice amplified by Freya's resonance. "Stand for unity, for hearths, for hearts." Ronan's sword answered with pale fire. Lucian drew his twin daggers, spinning them once. Elias thumped his shield. Talia notched an arrow, its tip radiating faint blue runes. Kale rolled his shoulders, blades humming. A second rune spark. Celine was ready. "Now!" Nara swept her sword downward. Iron crest horns blared. Archers loosed the first volley. Silver-tipped shafts whistling into the crater. River-break spears followed, forming flaming arcs as cloth-wrapped ends ignited mid-flight. Arrows struck cultists along the outer ring. Flames leapt across robes woven with mirror thread, catching instantly. Corrupted wolves lunged up the slopes. Hollow fang archers released moonglass shafts that shattered on impact, coating fur with frost venom. Ronan charged with Iron Crest infantry, shield wall bracing against the first tide. Clang of metal and snap of jaws echoed. Nara dashed downslope, Freya's power coiling around her legs. Talia sprinted at her left, loosing arrows faster than breath. Kale barreled through snow like an avalanche, axes whirling twin silver crescents. Iona followed, palm swirling cold flame. Elias flanked Nara, shield raised high. At the fissure base the ground rumbled. A deep percussion throb rippled across the basin as Selene's underground spell detonated. Red ward sigils across the crater rim flickered, then guttered like dying embers. Mirror cracks spidered the protective dome above the altar. Lucian shouted something triumphant. Iron Crest troops poured through the breach he created with river-break spear wall. Cultists scrambled to reform their rings. The cloaked leader thrust both hands outward. Tendrils of warp magic whipped into the charging army, knocking some warriors aside, but the wave kept moving. The mirror woman's chant grew louder, nearly musical. Shards around her spun faster, drawing crimson lightning from the eclipse-stained sky. Mate bonds across the realm trembled again. Nara felt the tug in her ribs, the connection to Ronan flickering like candlelight in a gale. She clenched her jaw, wielding the pain as fuel. Kale intercepted a hulking, corrupted wolf that lunged for Nara. He slammed one axe into its throat, the other through its spine, then pushed the carcass aside. "Path clear!" "Forward," Nara commanded. They reached the inner lava-polished ring. Sulfur vents hissed. Heat shimmered. Talia shot arrows into cultists perched on basalt spires, each shaft exploding in blue frost on impact. Iona cast frostfire orbs that detonated across mirror lines, creating pockets of biting cold. Elias bashed a cult adept aside with his shield. "Go!" Nara sped across the polished stone. Freya's silhouette overlaid her form, two bodies moving as one. Unity's promise clanged against the mirror's outer aura, spraying sparks. Each step echoed, as though the ground were a gigantic gong. The mirror woman pivoted, flame hair whipping in the storm wind. Her mirrored irises reflected Nara's determined face. She smiled, voice carrying. "Sister, I knew you would come to watch light surrender." "Light bends but does not kneel," Nara answered, sword raised. The woman stepped from the platform onto thin air, standing on invisible stairs of refracted glass. "Why break what you can master? Stand beside me. We bind all hearts to our will and end war forever." Freya snarled. "Bond by chains is not love," Nara said. "It is death in masquerade." The woman sighed as though disappointed. "Then see how bonds snap." She flung a hand upward. The closest shard blazed crimson, emitting a shriek of rending crystal. Across the battlefield, several warriors collapsed, clutching bond marks. Ronan stumbled halfway up the slope, sword digging into stone for balance. Pain lanced through Nara's chest. She gritted her teeth, forcing herself forward. "Every heart is a lever," the woman whispered, drifting closer. "Pull one string, make nations dance." Nara steadied her blade. A lever breaks when overloaded. She lunged. Steel met mirrored flame with a sound like worlds colliding. Sparks of silver and scarlet spiraled into the air. The woman parried, riposted with a flame whip that cracked across Nara's pauldron. Metal sizzled, but Freya's aura flared, repelling heat. "We are halves," the woman hissed, circling. "Join with me." "We are choices." Nara slashed. The blade's arc sliced through a flaming ribbon, dissolving it. The woman laughed, releasing a barrage of mirror shards. Nara spun, deflecting shards that rang against Unity's promise. One shard nicked her cheek, icy burn spreading until Freya's light cauterized the wound. Iona sprinted behind Nara, ice chains spiraling from her hands. She lashed a chain around the shard pedestal, yelling, "Strike now!" Kale hurled an axe. It cleaved into the pedestal seam. Elias slammed his shield edge, cracks zigzagging down the stone. The shard atop flickered wildly. The woman shrieked, hair flaring hotter. "No!" She thrust her palm forward. A wave of mirror force blasted Iona and Kale backward. Talia fired an arrow straight into the woman's shoulder. The tip burst frost, slowing her movement. Nara seized the opening. Freya roared. Sword blazing gold, Nara drove the edge through the pedestal core. A tremor shook the basin as the shard split with a deafening crack. Half the fragment evaporated into harmless dust, Celine's earlier runes still leaking through Nara's blade. The other half careened off into a molten fissure at the crater's center, hissing into red glow. The woman staggered, clutching her shoulder. Her eyes blazed fury and something like grief. "Sister, you sever our destiny." "I choose mine," Nara replied. The cliffs above thundered as Ronan's roar carried, a rallying cry. Iron Crest banners surged down the slope, warriors sweeping corrupt wolves aside. The cloaked leader realized his wards were failing. He raised both arms, and 4 smaller shards rose from the lava, encircling him like shield satellites. His hood fell. Beneath lay a pale, almost glassy face, eyes twin slivers of ruby. Nara's pulse spiked. Freya spoke within, calm as winter sun. "That one flees when mirror cracks." "True," the leader gestured, opening a swirling portal of mirrored vapor. He stepped backward, vanishing, shards following like dogs. In his place remained a vortex that sucked heat and ash, tearing basalt. The crater floor quaked. Ronan sprinted across the collapsing rock, skidding to Nara's side. "We end this." Together they faced the mirror woman, still formidable but faltering, bleeding silver and flame tears. She looked at Nara, a mingling of anger and sorrow. "You break the mirror, but shards hide in every heart. One day they will sing again." "Then one day I will answer again," Nara said. Ronan joined blades with her. They charged, silver and gold light braided, striking the woman's flame in dual arc. She parried once, twice, then faltered. Unity's promise pierced her breast. Ronan's sword split her remaining defenses. Red-hot fissures veined her form. She gasped, eyes softening. "Remember," she whispered, then dissolved into ash and spark that glittered upward, lost on the wind. The final shard hovering near the altar cracked, shattering into harmless crystal dust. Silence thundered. Across the battlefield, red aurora faded to ghostly lavender. Mate bonds snapped back into place like cords recoiling. A wave of silver luminescence swept outward, bathing wolves in gentle moonlight. Warriors still standing sank to knees, gasping with relief. Cries of joy mingled with mourning for fallen. Freya sighed, folding golden light back inside Nara's heart. The eclipse's blood sheen began to recede. The sun's crown peaked radiant, forcing crimson shadow to retreat. Nara exhaled, shoulders trembling. Ronan turned her gently, their foreheads meeting. In the hush, only their breaths and the distant crackle of extinguishing flame sounded. "We did it," he whispered. "No." She cupped his face, voice ragged. "All of us did. She looked out, Lucian propping Elias, Kale helping Maris bind a gash on Iona's arm, Talia hugging a tear-streaked Hollowfang archer. Above, banners of 5 packs lifted in the new wind. Lucian climbed a basalt block, voice hoarse but steady. Moon Alliance, for the first time in living memory, has won as one realm. High Luna Nara, High King Ronan. His shout echoed from cliffs. Warriors cheered, some kneeling, some howling to the healed sky. Nara's cheeks burned with shock and gratitude. She raised her sword in silent salute, an arc of silver catching new sunlight. Freya howled within, triumphant. Ronan wrapped an arm around her waist. High Luna suits you. And High King will need new maps, she teased, tears blurring victory's light. Cheers carried on rising wind. Yet Nara's gaze drifted to the caved portal where the cult leader had escaped. Faint ripples of mirror dust still floated there, glinting. 2 remain, Freya reminded softly, and we will be ready. Nara nodded once, resolute. Then she sheathed Unity's promise and guided Ronan toward the ridges where their people waited, hearts reforged in lunar light. Ronan's shout jolted Nara from the half-trance of motion. She skidded down the black glass slope after him, Kale's heavy boots thundering a heartbeat behind. Lightning split the sulfur sky above Darkglass, throwing blood-red reflections across the crater wall. In the flare, Nara saw Iron Crest shields braced in staggered rows, Hollowfang moon archers on ledges, and riverbreak spear carriers knee-deep in steam slick that boiled out of fissures. The eclipse disk had devoured nearly half the sun already, dyeing every breath a sinister crimson. Freya's growl rattled inside Nara's chest, faster. She lengthened her stride and reached Ronan's side at the forward barricade, rough-hewn logs swaddled in frostfire resin. Celine pressed glowing palms against the timber, muttering an anchoring chant. Sparks fizzed up her wrists. The ward stretched farther than human sight, filaments cross-linking barricades, ridge pylons, archer nests. She wiped a trickle of blood from her upper lip without acknowledging it. Elias slid over the lip of an adjacent boulder, twin swords dripping molten glass. Southern path is holding, but Raven Hollow scouts report a surge forming west. Talia loosed an arrow at a shadow creeping along the outer ring. The shaft sang, piercing mirror armor. The cultist toppled, shattering into glass clusters that hissed into crimson vapor. She pivoted, winked at Kale. 7? Kale cracked a grin. Give me a minute. He vaulted the barricade, hefting his axe, and met a charging mirror golem in a clash that rang like church bells across the basin. Lucian jogged up, breathing hard. We still have no sign of Nara's team inside the abyss. He adjusted his vambrace, voice pitched low. I trust her, but every minute the shard lives, the ritual clock tightens. Ronan's eyes flicked skyward. The eclipse consumed another bite. We buy them minutes. Thunder rolled. Not from clouds, but from chanting. A legion of cultists flowed like liquid glass along a lower ledge, spirals glowing on breastplates. At their head walked the ember-haired woman, mirror shard pauldrons flaring with flames. She lifted a hand and the chanting surged louder, voices overlapping in warbling dissonance. Mate marks all around Nara prickled, tightening as though cords inside every bonded pair were being twisted. The queen, standing in armor at the second rank, placed a steadying hand on her king's shoulder as both grimaced. She straightened and called, Hold focus. Remember the light in one another. Nara drew Unity's promise, blade flashing silver. Ronan, I'm going for her, she said under breath. I'll be your shield, he answered, touching the dagger at his belt, the one she'd given him when they parted for Frostglass. He drew his longsword, turning to Lucian. Command line 2 until Kale returns. Lucian saluted with 2 fingers. Go. Nara vaulted the barricade, Ronan half a step behind, Freya's power rushing down her limbs. The ground beneath quaked, heat roiling through vents that peppered the glassy floor. As they sprinted, flaming shards erupted like geysers, aiming to box them in. Ronan's sword beat one fragment aside. Nara rolled under another, momentum carrying her into a lunging hack that split a cultist helm. She skidded to a stop 10 paces from the Ember Woman whose mirrored eyes gleamed. "You made good time, sister," the stranger purred, "but you've come only to watch bonds bleed." "I came to end your reflection," Nara panted, stance loose, blade steady. The woman tilted her head. "End me, or end you? We are halves of the same shard. Let it complete, and we rule light and shadow together." Freya's snarl rattled. "We are whole without her." Nara's lips thinned. "Your rule drinks loyalty from fear. Mine is trust freely given." Flames flickered along the woman's arms. She spread her fingers. Blood-red energy coalesced into a long glaive of serrated glass. "Then trust them to survive this." She thrust the weapon into the ground. The basin trembled. Pillars of glass punched upward in a circle, cutting Nara and Ronan off from allied lines. Arrows rattled uselessly against the pillars. Talia cursed from somewhere beyond. Celine's voice echoed with an incantation outside, but red runes on the pillars absorbed her power, glowing brighter. Ronan swung, sword clanging off a pillar that refused to crack. He pivoted back to back with Nara. "Together," he murmured. They moved in tandem as the Ember Woman advanced, glaive spinning. First strike. Ronan parried, sparks showering. Second, Nara's blade intercepted a sweeping cut. Freya howled within. Nara half shifted, claws sprouting to grip the enemy polearm, jerking the woman off balance. But the mirror warrior countered impossibly fast. A flare burst from her free hand, forcing Nara to leap away. Ronan lunged. The glaive's butt struck his ribs, knocking him sideways. Nara caught him before he hit the glass floor, steadying with one arm even as her blade warded a slash. Overhead, crimson shadow swallowed all but a sliver of sun. Mate marks everywhere constricted. Nara felt her bond to Ronan burn, a rope pulling taut across a chasm. He winced, yet his voice remained calm. "We sever her link to the mirror, then break the pillars." Narah fixed on the gleaming shard embedded in the woman's chestplate. She nodded. They moved, Ronan feinting left, drawing the glaive's sweep. Nara ducked right, sliding under flaming shards. Freya guided her leap, paws flashing spectral gold, as she barreled into the woman's flank, claws ripping glass armor. The shard within the breastplate cracked. A shriek tore the air, half rage, half pain. The woman staggered. Crimson light faltered. Pillars flickered. Outside, Celine sensed the wobble. Her distant chant rose, runes searing deeper blue. One pillar spiderwebbed. The embers in the woman's hair flared hotter. She screamed, throwing out both hands. A blast of mirror force hurled Nara backward, skidding across jagged floor. Ronan slid to a stop beside her, bleeding from a cut along his temple. The woman surged, glaive raised overhead. An arrow hissed through a gap in the pillars. Talia found a knothole and pierced the woman's calf. She faltered, gaze snapping toward the ridge. Kale's axe whistled next. He'd leapt the barricade, hurling it like a comet. It smashed into the nearest pillar, cracking it wide. Lucian's voice rang. "All archers target fractures." Fletched shafts rained. Pillars shattered one by one. The ring collapsed, shards exploding into red mist. Ronan sprinted, scooping his fallen sword. Nara pushed to her feet, eyes fixed on the flickering shard in the enemy's armor. Fractured but still pulsing. The woman limped, but fury lent speed. She swept the glaive low. Ronan jumped, then planted off Nara's shoulder, springing up and bringing his sword down in an overhead arc. The blade hit the shard, dead center. It shattered into a spray of crimson dust. A sound like glass sighing escaped the woman. Fire in her hair sputtered, then dimmed. She collapsed to her knees, gaze meeting Nara's. "If the mirror is broken," she whispered, voice suddenly small, "what am I?" Nara crouched, breathing hard. "You are still flesh. Choose your path." The woman's mirrored eyes flickered silver, then brown. Human, bewildered. Tears sizzled on her cheeks. Before Nara could offer a hand, a black lance of energy punched through the woman's back, projected from the southern ridge. Her eyes went wide, then glassy. Nara spun toward the source. The cloaked cult leader stood on a melted outcrop, palm smoking. His voice boomed unnaturally. Broken pieces cut deepest. He vanished in a ripple of crimson heat. The woman's body sagged, dissolving into cold ash. Ronan knelt, rage and sorrow twisting his features. Nara pressed her forehead to his. Freya howled across the battlefield, a mournful, defiant arc of sound that made even enemy ranks still. Selene hurried over, staff clinking. The pillar's gone, the blood surge weakens, but the main altar is still channeling bond energy into the crater. Talia arrived, panting, cultists regrouping on east flank. Kyle retrieved his axe from broken rubble, and heavy war golems rolling up the ravine. Lucien wiped sweat. We beat one shard host. 2 remain powered by the altar directly. We crack it, or the eclipse finishes the ritual. Nara rose, body trembling but mind steady. She looked toward the crater's center, a dais of obsidian, ringed by mirror spires, all feeding scarlet energy into a swirling vortex. Soldiers fought along trenches ringing the platform, ironcrest shields against mirror halberds. The vortex spat arcs that lashed the sky, fusing clouds into crimson storms. The king rallied riverbreak spearmen toward the northern flank. Hollowfang archers sang war chants while loosing silver-tipped shafts. Behind a shield wall, Maris knelt by wounded scouts, crushing herbs with quick fingers. Nara squeezed Ronan's shoulder. We take the altar. He gripped her wrist side by side. They sprinted, allies opening lanes. Arrows streaked overhead, golems shattered under Kale's axe, and Raven Hollow blow darts laced with frostfire. Talia vaulted sandbanks, picking off cultists who targeted Selene. Elias blocked a glaive, redirecting its edge so a riverbreak warrior could finish the attacker. They reached the obsidian dais. Mirror spires thrummed, each topped with a shard, one dark as cooling magma, the piece Nara's team dropped into the crevasse, and one glowing with fresh bloodlight. Between them stood the cult leader, cloak billowing in a wind only he could feel. His hood fell back, revealing a face half glass, half flesh. Light refracted off cheekbones like prisms. He watched Nara, lips curling in an almost gentle smile. Daughter of shadow and flame, you have shattered mirrors yet still gaze for truth. Truth doesn't fear shattering, she said, climbing the steps with Ronan. He lifted his hands. Runes ignited across his skin. Mate marks all around the crater flared again, wolves staggering. Nara's heartstrings tugged so fiercely she swayed. Ronan steadied her. Selene planted her staff on the lowest step, chanting. Runes blazed cobalt, weaving shields around Ronan and Narah, dampening the bond sever pull. The leader frowned. Old magic cannot cage destiny. Lucian hurled a dagger. It struck the leader's shoulder, shattering glass flesh but reforming instantly. The leader flicked fingers. The dagger dissolved into dust mid-air. Kale roared, charging with axe raised. A wall of mirrored crystal erupted, hurling him back where Maris and an emissary caught him. Elias sprinted across the platform, swords ablur, but spires shot beams of red that forced him to retreat. Talia's arrows melted before reaching their target. The leader floated a hand toward Nara. I have offered you sovereignty, sister of shards. Accept, and I release their bonds. Refuse, and every mate will scream in emptiness. Nara lifted Unity's promise. You misunderstand power. It thrives shared, not hoarded. Then share their pain. The leader clenched a fist, spires brightened. Wolves on distant ridges collapsed, screaming as marks ruptured into flame. Freya's voice boomed inside Narah. Now she thrust her dagger, the silver-edged heirloom, into Ronan's palm. Channel through me. Ronan understood. He pressed the dagger's tip to their bond mark where teeth had once pierced flesh. White gold light burst between them, a column that shot skyward, slamming into Eclipse shadow. The blood disk trembled. Light cascaded down into Unity's promise, igniting runes dormant since its forging. Nara advanced. white gold aura shielding her from red beams. The leader raised both arms. Shards hissed with molten fury. Ronan followed, longsword glowing like dawn steel. Selene shouted the last syllable of an ancient invocation. Blue rings locked the spires, freezing crimson energy for a breath. In that breath, Nara leapt, cleaving one spire with a two-handed strike. It fractured in dazzling shards that burst into stardust. Mate, marks across the basin cooled. The leader screamed, eyes flashing silver shards. He thrust a hand at Ronan. Scarlet spear of light shot forward. Ronan parried, sliding the spear along his sword's edge, turning it. The energy whipped past Nara, gouging obsidian. Lucian and Talia rained steel and arrows to distract. Nara pivoted, lunging for the second spire, the molten shard. The leader blurred, intercepting. Blades met, glass and silver crashing, sparks hurling molten droplets. Freya flooded Nara's limbs with power. Every rejection, wound, triumph of her life roared through her muscles. She hammered strike upon strike until cracks spread across the leader's blade. Ronan joined her, crossing swords, twisting the leader's weapon away. Nara seized the moment, drove Unity's promise straight into the molten shard. It pierced with a sound like breaking ice under fire. A geyser of white gold light erupted, shoving Nara and Ronan backward. Nara hit the platform, sliding near Selene, who anchored with staff. The spire exploded into a cyclone of fractured mirrors that lifted into the sky and vaporized, devoured by the eclipse core. The leader reeled, cloak ripped, half-glass face, spider-webbing. He glared at Nara, hatred and awe mingling. "This is not an ending," he rasped. "It is reflection shattered," she answered. Freya howled. The Ridge armies picked up the cry. Hollow fang horns blared. River break drums thundered. Allied wolves surged, routing remaining cultists. Cracks raced across the platform toward the leader. Selene's runes climaxed, binding fragments into sparkling chains. Ronan took Nara's bleeding hand, catching her before she collapsed. The leader looked to the sky where eclipse shadow fractured under converging auroras of gold and blue. He gave a soft, almost fond laugh, then crumbled, body disintegrating into flakes of mirror dust that the rising wind carried into dawn. Light burst over the crater. The blood hue faded, revealing a sliver of true sun peeking past lunar rim. Silence followed, wide, stunned, holy. Then cheers rolled like thunder from every ridge. Nara lowered her sword, lungs burning. Ronan pressed his forehead to hers. "We're still bound," he breathed, tears shining. "Forever," she whispered. Lucian reached them, clapping Ronan's shoulder, then hugging Nara with fierce relief. Kyle limped up, axe across his back, muttering, 12. Beat that, Archer." Talia smirked through tears. "You're still 2 behind." Maris hurried, checking wounds, scolding Kale for overexertion. Iona watched the dissolving crimson clouds, uncertainty and hope tangling in her eyes. Selene sagged to her knees. Nara knelt, catching the witch before she fell. "We did it," Nara said. Selene managed a weary smile. Light quenched the mirror. For now. The Lycan king and queen ascended the platform, both removing helmets. The king's voice trembled with pride. "Our daughter ended night." Nara stood, blood-spattered, exhausted, but whole. She looked across allies. Riverbreak emissaries gripping each other's shoulders, Raven Hollow scouts saluting, Hollowfang archers lowering bows. She raised Unity's promise, its runes now glowing calm platinum. "Shattered or whole, we rise together." Cheers answered, echoing off distant peaks. Far off, twilight clouds cast final flecks of crimson before whitening to dawn. The realm breathed out. Yet in a forgotten grotto, half buried by rockfall, the first shard's dull fragment still hummed. A faint, steady throb, like a heartbeat waiting to be found. Freya's guttural caution brushed Nara's mind. Vigilance never sleeps. Nara squeezed Ronan's fingers, feeling pulse and promise. "Let them come. she murmured. "We will greet every shadow with sunrise." The sun climbed higher, lighting glass fragments that now lay harmless, glittering like morning dew. Battle hymns drifted into warm air, mingling with victory's fragile silence, and somewhere within it grew the first calm laughter Nara had heard since she'd been an orphaned Omega, dreaming of brighter skies. Eclipse broken, bond unsevered, the Lycan Princess stood at the edge of a new dawn, ready for whatever paths opened beyond the light. Shadows rippled across dark glass crater as the eclipse reached its penumbra, turning the sky an unsettling wine red. A hush swept through the battlefield, cultists frozen mid-chant, alliance warriors standing shield to shield. Nara poised upon a crag of gleaming obsidian. Behind her, Ronan's heavy infantry waited like a drawn bow. At the lip of the caldera, a circle of mirror shards pulsed crimson, the central slab humming with the life of the half-molten shard Nara's team had lost in Frostglass Abyss. Beside it stood the cloaked leader, face still veiled, one pale hand resting on the stone. To his right, the ember-haired woman radiated flame and glass, her mirrored eyes locked on Nara. Freya bristled within. The bond between us and her burns hotter than the eclipse. Ronan stepped to Nara's side, sword braced against his shoulder. "Alliance lines hold. Give the signal." "Not yet," she whispered, palms tingling as she measured the rhythm of the mirror's energy. Each pulse coincided with a tremor in her chest. "If we strike before the surge peaks, shards everywhere may detonate." Celine, standing a body length behind, lifted her staff. Blue runes flickered unstable. "Minutes, not hours, Princess. When the moon fully covers the sun, their ritual seals." The cloaked leader raised his arms. His voice rode the winds, seductive and cold. Lycan blood scattered in fear, gather now beneath true reflection. Witness the dissolving of chains. The mirror's hum deepened. Cracks along its surface glowed blood-bright. The Alliance line answered with their own roar. Lucian led Blue Moon Rangers in a drumbeat rhythm, weapon hafts striking shield rims. Hollowfang archers lifted silver arrowheads, waiting for Talia's whistle. Kyle exhaled. Axes ready, snow steaming from his beard. Nara stepped forward until she stood alone on the obsidian outcrop between armies. Her voice carried, unamplified yet resonant. "Choice, not reflection, creates destiny. We rise because we build, not because a shard claims us." The woman of mirrored flame laughed, a sound like glass bells smashing. "You reject yourself, sister. All power and no acceptance." She drew a burning shard blade, flames dancing along its edge. "Come. A single cut will reveal truth." Ronan tensed, but Nara lifted a hand. "Faith," she told him softly. She walked down the slope, each boot crunching thin frost. Freya wrapped energy through limbs, hot, steady. Unity's promise glimmered at her side, aura flaring gold. At 15 paces, the flaming woman struck first, a whirlwind slash that hissed through frigid air. Nara parried, sparks of gold meeting cinders of red. Heat seared her cheeks. The woman pressed, footwork liquid, sword arcs forming mirrored crescents. "You don't even know my name," she taunted between blows. "Then tell me," Nara answered, deflecting a thrust and riposting toward the woman's hip. The edge met a shard-woven cloak, skidding. "Lyara," the woman said, pivoting away. "Shadow of your light, flame of your frost." Her next strike hammered Nara's guard, forcing a step back. Two pieces of one prophecy. Ronan, watching tensely, murmured to Celine, "If Nara falters, we—" "She won't," Celine interrupted, though her knuckles whitened on the staff. "Focus on the circle." Iona sank to one knee on a ridge across the pit, carefully placing frostfire bombs among the glass spires. Talia signaled archers to ready silver thread rope arrows designed to entangle mirror fissures. Lucian and Elias crept along a shale shelf, aiming to cut the cult's flanks when the moment came. Nara and Liara clashed again. This time Nara shifted, letting Freya bleed into her limbs. Her eyes flared amber, Her voice rang deeper. Then we're both daughters of the moon and earth. Come home. Home? Liara snarled, delivering a diagonal slice. Home cast me into shadow. The mirror gave me purpose. Freya's growl shook Nara's ribs. Show her the path, not the curse. Nara locked blades, sparks showering. Purpose without choice is still a cage. Liara's eyes flickered. For a heartbeat, her sword lowered a fraction, uncertainty ghosting across mirrored irises. In that instant, Freya flooded their bond with memory, Blue Moon's laughter when pups played, Ronan's steady heartbeat, the warmth of packfire. Nara pushed the emotions outward through her gaze. Liara's breath caught. Flame wavered, but the cloaked leader's voice cracked like a whip. Do not falter, Ember. Break her reflection. Red surged around Liara's feet, shards hovering, tiny daggers. She hissed, anger renewed. Goodbye, sister. She hurled a storm of glass. Nara swept Unity's promise in a wide arc. Gold light erupted, shattering half the shards, but several slipped past, slicing her shoulder. Blood beaded, then sizzled. Pain stabbed, yet she advanced. Liara swung. Nara ducked, planted a fist to Liara's midriff, knocking breath free. In that moment, Nara whispered, "We can both be free." Liara staggered. The mirror behind her pulsed violently, cracks widening. Crimson lightning lashed Liara's back, straightening her with puppet precision. Her scream tore the air, half fury, half pain. Selene gasped. The mirror's overriding her will now, Nara. Nara pivoted, raising her free hand to alliance lines. Ronan barked, "Engage!" The battlefield exploded. Iron-crest shields locked against a surge of cultists. Hollow fang arrows loosed, silver shafts pinning mirror acolytes to black stone. Kyle leapt from his ridge, axes carving a path toward the central slab. Talia's rope arrows whistled overhead, binding two shards in glittering cords. Iona's frostfire bombs detonated, blue flames icing cultists' feet before erupting in crackling bursts. In the chaos, Nara and Freya merged, form shifting fluidly. Muscles elongated, fur rippled, armor fused into spectral plating. She became the royal Lycan, part woman, part silver wolf, eyes blazing gold. Liara met the transformation with widening eyes, then charged, cloak of flame trailing like a comet. Blades met once more. Nara's sword clanged against Liara's fire shard edge. This time Nara guided energy through every strike, steady, compassionate, unyielding. She turned Liara's force aside, answering with precise cuts that sliced flaming ribbons from the cloak but spared flesh. Choose, Nara demanded, voice layered with Freya's growl. The mirror, or freedom. Liara faltered, breath ragged. Behind her, Kale slammed an axe into the base of a shard pillar, splintering it. Selene shouted arcane words. A web of silver runes crawled across the central slab, suppressing its light in spurts. Lucian and Elias fought back-to-back against cultists, clearing a path for Raven Hollow scouts to plant explosive runestones. The eclipse reached totality. The sky went black, ringed by a corona of red fire. The mirror shrieked, an audible crack that splintered rock. Mate marks across the field blazed. Wolves yelped, clutching chests. Nara felt the bond with Ronan yank like a fishhook. She stumbled. Liara, equally struck, dropped her blade, clutching her sternum, screaming. The cloaked leader slammed both palms onto the slab, channeling a wave of crimson shock that rolled outward, blasting alliance warriors to their knees. Shards levitated, spinning faster. Freya howled in Nara's mind, heartlines breaking. Stop him. Nara gathered breath. Ronan! She shouted. He raised his sword, despite shaking arms, eyes fierce. In perfect unison, they plunged their weapons, his blade, her dagger, into the obsidian floor. Golden and silver energy spiraled around them, forming a bridge of light between their bond marks. Freya's power surged along the bridge, colliding with the mirror's crimson wave. The energies warred midair, gold and red seething. Selene thrust her staff into the ground. Anchor! She cried. Blue rune chains shot upward, binding the slab. Kale, Elias, and Talia drove their weapons into fissures, lending strength. Iona hurled the final frostfire orb at the crystal crown, blue flame swallowing red cracks. Liara, still on her knees, looked up at Nara through strands of fiery hair. Tears glittered in mirrored eyes. "Help. Me." Nara released Unity's promise, letting it hover mid-air in Freya's aura. She reached both hands to Liara's cheeks. "Let the mirror go." Liara trembled. Crimson veins pulsed at her temples. Nara closed her eyes, opened her heart. She poured memories, Ronan's laugh, Hollowfang's moonlight, Blue Moon Pup's joy, into Liara's mind. The red in Liara's veins dimmed, flickered, then stilled. She sagged forward. Nara caught her. The cloaked leader hissed. She was the key. He slammed his hands down again, but Celine's runes tightened, snapping chains that circled his wrists. The mirror shrieked louder, fracturing down the core. Kale roared, driving both axes into the central crack. Lucian and Elias struck simultaneously with twin daggers. Talia's arrow shattered a top shard. Sparks rained. Blue frost fire raced through fissures. Gold and silver light burst from Narah and Ronan's bridge, flooding the slab. With a deafening crack, the mirror imploded. Shards collapsed inward, red glow snuffing like dying coals. The cloaked leader staggered back, cloak swept aside. The hood slipped, revealing sunken cheeks, silver eyes rimmed black. Hatred twisted his features. "Not broken," he hissed, voice raw. "Just scattered." He clawed open a shadow doorway. Swirling glass swallowed him. In seconds, he and the remaining cultists vanished, leaving broken crimson dust. Silence fell, broken only by distant creaks of cooling stone. Nara cradled Liara, whose flame hair now smoldered gently, eyes no longer mirrors but soft amber. "You're safe," Nara whispered. Liara's voice was raw. "Sister, thank you." Tears slipped, extinguishing final sparks. Across the crater, warriors rose shakily, checking bond marks. The earlier pain faded. Hearts beat steady. Celine collapsed to knees, breathing hard, but smiling. Lucian slapped Elias's shoulder, laughter breaking free. Talia loosed a victory whoop that echoed off cliffs. Kyle simply flopped onto stone, arms spread. Ronan sheathed his sword and strode to Nara. She stood, still holding Liara's hand. He enfolded them both. Freya's contented hum pulsed through Nara's chest. Around them, dawn's first sliver of light peeked past the eclipsed edge, turning the sky from black-red to smoky violet. Alliance warriors gathered near, forming a circle. Hollowfang archers bowed. Riverbreak spearmen tapped tridents to ground. Raven Hollow scouts crossed palms over hearts. The Lycan king and queen climbed the ridge, flanked by guards. The king's weathered face softened as he took in Nara's stance, Ronan beside her, Liara supported between them. He raised his voice. "Tonight the pack stood under one banner. The mirror is not a ruler of fate. Unity is." Cheering swept the slopes, tired, hoarse, yet triumphant. Nara lifted Unity's promise. "We stand free. Let trust bind brighter than any shard." Ronan squeezed her fingers. "And love, brighter than either." In the days that followed, shards were hunted and sealed. Cultist remnants pursued into wastes. Liara chose to stay at Ironcrest Vaults, helping Celine sense lingering mirror echoes. Her flame now glowed blue-white, tempered. Cole led reconstruction at Blue Moon. Hollowfang's lunar wells burned clear. Nara and Ronan stood on Ironcrest's highest parapet 3 nights later, watching a true full moon wash snowfields silver. Soft wind tugged Nara's cloak. Ronan slipped the silver-edged dagger into a sheath on her belt. "Keep her legacy close." Nara rested her head on his shoulder. "And keep mine." She touched the cord on his wrist. Freya's voice was serene. Storms pass, pack remains. At the horizon, faint green auroras danced. No crimson marred them. Yet Nara felt no complacency, only quiet readiness. She spoke into the night. If shadows rise again, we will be ready. Ronan's reply was simple. Together. Far north, beyond mountains, a single sliver of dark glass lay half buried in snow, pulsing faintly, waiting. But for this moment, peace tasted like cold air and warm hearts. Nara closed her eyes, breathing it in, choosing hope every heartbeat that followed.